A wealthy Nigerian businessman discovers a homeless boy performing an extraordinary dance outside his mansion gates. But when he realizes why the boy is dancing, everything changes forever. What happens next will leave you speechless and restore your faith in humanity. Listen closely, because this story will change how you see the power of kindness. In the heart of Lagos, behind the towering walls of a Victoria Island estate, lived Michael Thompson, a man whose Midas touch had built an empire worth billions of naira. His name echoed through the corridors of power from Abuja to New York. Oil refineries, telecommunications, real estate, everything Michael touched turned to gold. But behind those imposing gates, in rooms filled with priceless art and Italian marble, lived a silence so heavy it could crush your soul. This wasn't the peaceful quiet of contentment. This was the suffocating silence of a father watching his only child fade away, piece by piece, day after day. 7-year-old Grace Thompson had once been the heartbeat of that mansion. Her laughter used to dance through every corridor, her tiny feet pattering across polished floors as she chased their family cat, Whiskers, through the sprawling gardens. She was pure joy in human form, the kind of child who could make grown men smile just by existing. But that was before the accident that shattered their world into a million pieces. It happened on a rainy Thursday evening in November. Michael's wife, Sarah, was driving Grace home from ballet class when a drunk driver ran a red light at Lekki Phase 1. The impact was so violent that it made headlines across Nigerian newspapers for weeks. Sarah died instantly, her last act being to shield Grace with her own body. Grace survived, but the spinal injury left her paralyzed from the waist down. At 7 years old, she would never walk again, never run through those gardens, never chase Whiskers up the spiral staircase. Michael spent millions trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. Private jets to Switzerland for experimental surgery. The best neurologists from Johns Hopkins flown to Lagos. Traditional healers from every corner of Nigeria. Stem cell therapy in Germany. Every door that money could open, he kicked down. But Grace's legs remained still. Worse than that, her spirit began to wither like a flower denied sunlight. The little girl who once sang Disney songs at the top of her lungs now spoke in whispers. The child who used to beg for just 5 more minutes of playtime now spent entire days staring out her bedroom window, watching the world move while she remained frozen in place. Michael tried everything to reach her. He bought every toy imaginable, converted one wing of the mansion into a playground, hired the most expensive child therapists in West Africa. But nothing could pierce through the wall of sadness that had built up around his daughter's heart. The servants whispered in corners about how the big man's shoulders had begun to sag, how his famous smile had disappeared, how he sometimes stood in Grace's empty playroom at midnight, just staring at the swing set that would never be used again. Nigeria's most powerful businessman was powerless against his daughter's pain. Then came that afternoon, the day everything changed. Grace sat in her custom wheelchair in the mansion's front garden, positioned where she could see through the ornate iron gates. This had become her routine, watching the world beyond those walls, perhaps wondering what it would feel like to be part of it again. The Lagos sun beat down mercilessly, but Grace didn't notice. She was lost in her own thoughts, her small hands folded in her lap, when something caught her attention. Through the gaps in the gate, she saw movement that was different from the usual hustle of Lagos traffic. Not the purposeful stride of businesspeople or the hurried shuffle of market vendors. This was something magical. A boy, maybe 10 years old, was dancing. But this wasn't just any dance. This wasn't the Afrobeats routines she'd seen on MTV Base or the traditional dances from her cultural studies books. This was something pure, something that seemed to flow from his very soul. His name was Daniel, though most people in the Morocco slums simply called him Dance Boy. The kid who could make music out of silence, who could find rhythm in the chaos of Lagos traffic. Daniel had never known his father. His mother, Blessing, had died of typhoid fever when he was 6, leaving him with an elderly grandmother who did her best but whose pension could barely feed one mouth, let alone 2. When Mama Eunice passed away 2 years later, Daniel found himself completely alone in a world that had no safety net for forgotten children. The streets became his home, the concrete bridges his bed, the kind hearts of strangers his only hope for daily bread. But somehow, in the midst of all that hardship, Daniel had discovered something incredible. When life got too heavy, when the hunger gnawed at his belly like a wild animal, when the older street boys pushed him around, when the loneliness felt like it might swallow him whole, he would dance. Started small, just moving to the beat of distant music from a nearby shop. But as the months passed, Daniel's body learned to create its own rhythm, its own language of movement that could express what words never could. The people of Lagos began to notice. Commuters stuck in traffic would roll down their windows to watch the skinny boy transform the mundane intersection into a stage. Shop owners would pause their haggling to witness moments of pure artistry happening right outside their doors. Some threw coins, others just smiled. But all of them, for those brief moments, forgot their troubles and remembered what it felt like to witness something beautiful. On this particular afternoon, Daniel was returning from a disappointing day of trying to earn money at the Lekki toll gate when he spotted the mansion. The sheer size of it made him stop and stare. He'd seen wealth before, Lagos was full of it. But this was different. This looked like the palaces from the Nollywood movies his grandmother used to love. Curious, he approached the gate, trying to peer through the ornate metalwork. That's when he saw her, a little girl in a wheelchair, sitting alone in a garden that looked like paradise. But her face carried a sadness so deep it made Daniel's chest tighten with recognition. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself during those first nights on the street, when he'd cried until no more tears would come. It was the look of someone who'd given up hope. Without thinking, without planning, without even knowing why, Daniel began to move. It started with his shoulders, rolling to an imaginary beat. Then his feet, tapping out a rhythm on the hot asphalt. His arms joined in, creating shapes in the air that seemed to pull joy out of thin air. Grace blinked, then blinked again. Was she imagining this? Through the gate, this strange boy was putting on a show just for her. His movements were so exaggerated, so completely ridiculous, that despite herself, despite the heavy sadness that had been her companion for months, Grace felt the corner of her mouth twitch. Daniel noticed. That tiny movement was like rocket fuel to his performance. He spun, he jumped, he pretended to trip over his own feet. He made faces that would have made a stone statue laugh. And then it happened. Grace laughed. Started as a giggle, soft and rusty from lack of use. But as Daniel's performance grew more outrageous, as he pretended to be a chicken doing ballet, as he mime-walked into an invisible wall, as he spun so fast he got dizzy and stumbled, Grace's laughter grew stronger. Soon she was clapping, her small hands creating their own rhythm to match Daniel's movements. Her back, which had been curved in permanent defeat, straightened. Her eyes, dull for so long, began to sparkle. For 20 precious minutes, Grace forgot she couldn't walk. For 20 minutes, she was just a 7-year-old girl laughing at the funniest show she'd ever seen. For 20 minutes, the mansion's suffocating silence was broken by the most beautiful sound in the world. Inside the house, Michael was in his study reviewing quarterly reports when he heard it. At first, he thought he was hallucinating. It had been so long since that sound had graced his home that his brain couldn't immediately process what it was. But as the laughter continued, growing stronger and more joyful, Michael's documents scattered to the floor as he rushed to the window. What he saw stopped his heart. His daughter was alive again. Her whole body was animated with joy, clapping and laughing at a street boy, a homeless child dancing outside his gate. Michael's first instinct was anger. How dare this urchin disturb his property? Where were the security guards? What if this boy was dangerous? What if he was casing the house for a robbery? But as he watched Grace's face, truly watched it for the first time in months, all his anger dissolved into something much more powerful. Wonder. This nameless boy from the street was doing what armies of doctors couldn't do, what millions of naira couldn't purchase, what all of Michael's power and influence had failed to achieve. He was giving Grace back her childhood. Michael stood frozen at that window, watching his daughter laugh with an intensity she hadn't shown since before the accident, watching her small body come alive again, responding to this incredible display of pure, selfless joy. And in that moment, something fundamental shifted in Michael Thompson's heart. The next day, Grace surprised everyone by asking to be wheeled to the front garden again. She'd never made such a request before. Usually, it took considerable coaxing to get her to leave her room. "Are you sure, my love?" asked Mrs. Adunni, the kind Yoruba woman who served as Grace's nanny and had been with the family since Grace was born. Grace nodded eagerly, her eyes brighter than they'd been in months. "I want to see if the dancing boy comes back." And he did. Daniel had spent the night under the Falomo Bridge, but he'd slept better than he had in weeks. The memory of that little girl's laughter had filled his dreams with something he'd almost forgotten existed: purpose. He'd found someone who needed what he could give, someone whose sadness was deeper than his own, and somehow, miraculously, his dancing had been able to reach her. As he approached the mansion gates around the same time as the day before, his heart hammered with nervous excitement. What if yesterday had been a fluke? What if the girl wasn't there? What if she'd gotten tired of his silly performances? But there she was, positioned in the exact same spot, looking through the gate with expectant eyes. Daniel grinned and immediately launched into his routine. But today was different. Today he came prepared. He'd found a broken umbrella in a dumpster and turned it into a prop. He used it as a walking stick for a Charlie Chaplin impression, then as a dance partner for an elaborate tango, then as a limbo stick that he somehow managed to limbo under despite holding both ends himself. Grace erupted in laughter. She clapped so hard her palms turned red. She tried to copy some of his movements from her wheelchair, swaying back and forth, moving her arms in time with his dance. "Again!" she called out through the gate when he paused. "Do the funny walk again." Daniel obliged, adding even more exaggerated movements, stumbling and recovering in ways that defied the laws of physics and common sense. From his study window, Michael watched it all. And this time, instead of anger or confusion, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: gratitude. This continued for a week. Every afternoon at 4 p.m., Daniel would appear at the gate like clockwork, and Grace would be waiting for him, her face bright with anticipation. Their strange friendship developed its own language. She would make requests through the bars of the gate, and he would fulfill them with increasingly creative and hilarious performances. "Can you dance like a monkey?" she asked one day. Daniel's monkey dance was so convincing that even the gardener stopped working to watch, chuckling despite himself. "Can you pretend to be a car that won't start?" Daniel's broken car routine, complete with sound effects and fake exhaust fumes, achieved by blowing dust around dramatically, had Grace gasping with laughter. But it wasn't just entertainment. Something deeper was happening. Grace began talking more. She started asking questions about the outside world, something she hadn't done since the accident. She would tell Mrs. Adunni about Daniel's performances in vivid detail, her hands moving animatedly as she described each gesture. Most remarkably, she began trying to move in ways she hadn't attempted in months. Inspired by Daniel's dancing, she would practice lifting her arms higher, trying to sway her upper body in rhythm, even attempting to bounce slightly in her chair. Her physical therapist was amazed. "Mr. Thompson, dear," Adebayo said during Grace's weekly session, "I don't know what's changed, but Grace is showing motor improvements I frankly didn't think were possible. Her upper body strength has increased dramatically, her coordination is sharper, and most importantly, she's motivated. She wants to move. That's half the battle in cases like hers." Michael knew exactly what had changed, but he wasn't ready to explain it. How could he tell Nigeria's most respected pediatric neurologist that his daughter was being healed by a street boy's dance performances? By the end of that first week, Michael had made a decision that would change everything. Instead of watching from his window, he walked down to the garden. Daniel saw the tall, imposing figure approaching, and his blood turned to ice. He'd seen that look before. The look of an angry rich man about to call the police, about to ensure he'd spend the night in a cell instead of under the stars. He started to back away, but Grace's voice stopped him.
"Daddy, No.
Don't chase him away. Please. Michael raised his hand, not in threat, but in a gesture of peace. I'm not here to send you away, son. I want to talk. Daniel stood his ground, but every muscle in his body was coiled to run if necessary. Rich people in Lagos were unpredictable. Their kindness often came with strings attached, or disappeared entirely when it became inconvenient. What's your name? Michael asked, his voice gentler than Daniel had expected. Daniel, sir. Daniel. Michael repeated the name, letting it settle in his mind. How old are you? 10, sir. I think. The uncertainty in that answer hit Michael like a physical blow. This child didn't even know his own age with certainty. What kind of life had he lived that such basic information was unclear? Where do you live, Daniel? The boy's eyes dropped to the ground. Nowhere specific, sir. I move around. Grace wheeled herself closer to the gate, pressing her small face against the bars. Daddy, he makes me happy. He's the funniest person in the whole world. Michael looked at his daughter, really looked at her. Her cheeks had color for the first time in months. Her eyes were bright and alert. Her whole posture radiated an energy that had been missing since the accident. Then he looked at Daniel. The boy was painfully thin. His clothes were more patches than original fabric. His feet were bare and calloused from walking on hot Lagos streets. But his eyes held something rare in a world that had clearly been cruel to him. Kindness.
Pure, undiluted kindness.
Daniel, Michael said carefully, why do you dance for my daughter? The boy was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with whether to tell the truth. Finally, he looked up, meeting Michael's eyes with surprising directness. Because she looked sad, sir. Really, really sad. And I know what that feels like. Dancing makes the sadness smaller. Not gone, but smaller. I thought maybe it could work for her too. Michael felt something crack open in his chest. This child, this forgotten, abandoned child, had seen his daughter's pain and decided, with no thought of reward, to try to heal it. With the only medicine he had, joy. It's working, Michael said quietly. What you're doing, it's working. That evening, Michael called his head of security, Mr. Emeka, into his study. Sir, Emeka began, clearly expecting to be asked to increase patrols or install new cameras. About the street boy at the gate. What about him? Should we chase him away? I know Miss Grace seems to enjoy his performances, but the neighbors are starting to talk. They say it brings down the tone of the area, having such people hanging around. Michael leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. For 20 years, he'd cared deeply about what the neighbors thought, about maintaining the reputation of his household, about projecting an image of untouchable success. But that was before he'd watched his daughter laugh for the first time in 8 months. Let me ask you something, Emeka. In all your years of working for this family, when was the last time you heard Miss Grace laugh? The security chief thought for a moment, his weathered face creasing with concentration. Sir, I cannot remember the last time. Neither could I, until this week. That boy Daniel, he's not bringing down anything. He's lifting my daughter up. And anyone who has a problem with that can take their complaints directly to me. Emeka nodded slowly, beginning to understand. So we should continue allowing him access? More than that, I want you to ensure his safety. If anyone bothers him while he's here, if any of our neighbors try to chase him away, you intervene. This boy is under my protection now. The next afternoon, when Daniel arrived for his daily performance, he found something that made him stop short. A small table had been set up near the gate with a chair beside it. On the table was a plate of jollof rice, fried plantain, and grilled chicken, still steaming hot. Next to it was a bottle of cold water and a glass of fresh orange juice. A note in childish handwriting was taped to the table. For Daniel, the best dancer in Lagos. From your friend Grace. Daniel stared at the feast in disbelief. When was the last time he'd had a full meal? When had he last tasted meat that wasn't scraps from someone else's plate? When had anyone ever called him their friend? His hands shook as he sat down and took his first bite. The flavors exploded across his taste buds, Mrs. Adunny was known throughout Victoria Island as the finest cook money could hire, and she'd prepared this meal with extra care, knowing it was for the boy who'd brought sunshine back into their household. As Daniel ate, Grace watched through the gate, her face glowing with happiness at seeing her friend enjoy the meal she'd insisted on providing. "Is it good?" she called out. Daniel could only nod, his mouth full and his eyes bright with unshed tears. No one had ever cared enough to feed him like this. No one had ever called him their friend. When he finished eating, he put on the performance of his lifetime. He danced with such energy, such creativity, such pure joy that even the usually stern Mr. Emeka found himself smiling from his security post. And for the first time since she'd been in the wheelchair, Grace tried something new. Inspired by Daniel's movements, she gripped the arms of her wheelchair and tried to push herself up. Not to stand, that was still impossible, but to lift herself slightly, to participate more fully in the dance. She managed, but the triumph on her face was worth more than all of Michael's business deals combined. "Did you see that?" she called to Daniel excitedly. "I moved. I actually moved." Daniel whooped with joy and spun in circles, celebrating her victory as if it were his own. Because in a way they were healing each other, these two wounded children from completely different worlds. Their friendship was becoming something neither of them had ever experienced before, pure, unconditional, transformative love. Days turned into weeks, and the routine became sacred. Daniel would arrive at 4 p.m. to find his meal waiting. He would eat while chatting with Grace through the gate, telling her stories of Lego street life that she found endlessly fascinating, while she shared tales of her privileged world that seemed like fairy tales to him. Then came the performance, growing more elaborate each day as Daniel's confidence grew and his body grew stronger from regular meals. And always, Grace would try to move, to participate, to push her body just a little further than the day before. Her progress was becoming impossible to ignore. Dr. Adebayo was forced to revise his entire treatment plan based on Grace's remarkable improvements. Her core strength had increased dramatically. Her coordination had sharpened. Most incredibly, she was beginning to regain sensation in areas that had been numb since the accident. "It's unprecedented," he confided to Michael during a private consultation. "I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've never seen recovery at this rate in a case as severe as Grace's. Whatever you're doing, don't stop." But it wasn't just Grace who was transforming. Daniel was changing too. The regular meals had filled out his painfully thin frame. Mrs. Adunny had quietly started leaving clean clothes with the daily meal, so his torn rags had been replaced with simple but dignified outfits. Most importantly, the constant fear that had lived in his eyes was being replaced by something powerful. Security, belonging, purpose. For the first time in his life, Daniel had something to look forward to each day. Someone who cared whether he showed up. Someone whose day was brightened by his presence. It was during the 4th week of their friendship that everything changed again. Grace had been practicing her lifting exercises daily, determined to participate more fully in Daniel's performances. Her upper body strength was now strong enough that she could hold herself up for nearly a minute at a time. But on this particular afternoon, she wanted to try something different. "Daniel," she called out as he finished an elaborate robot dance routine, "I want to try something, but I need your help." "Anything," Daniel replied without hesitation. "What do you want to do?" Grace took a deep breath, her small face set with determination that reminded Michael powerfully of his late wife Sarah. "I want to try to stand, really stand, not just lift myself up, but actually put weight on my legs." The garden fell silent. Even the birds seemed to pause their singing. Daniel's eyes widened. He'd heard enough conversations between Grace and her nanny to understand that walking was considered impossible. The doctors had been very clear about that. But looking at his friend's face, seeing the desperate hope mixed with fierce determination, Daniel knew he couldn't say no. "Okay," he said simply. "How can I help?" From his study window, Michael watched this conversation with a mixture of hope and terror. He'd seen Grace's remarkable progress, But attempting to stand? That could lead to crushing disappointment or worse, injury. He started to move toward the door, intending to intervene, but something stopped him. The look on his daughter's face. He'd seen that expression before, in the weeks before she'd first crawled as a baby, in the moments before she'd taken her first steps. This was the face of a child determined to push beyond her limits. Grace wheeled herself as close to the gate as possible. Daniel knelt on the other side, pressing his hands against the bars so she could grip his fingers through the metal. "On the count of 3? Grace asked, her voice trembling with nervous excitement. Daniel nodded. "On 3. 1. Grace positioned her hands on her wheelchair arms, preparing to push herself up. 2. Daniel braced himself, ready to provide whatever support he could through the gate. 3. Grace pushed with every ounce of strength in her small body. Her arms shook with effort as she raised herself up, up, and then, impossibly, her feet touched the ground. Not just touched, they held her weight. For just a moment, for just a few precious seconds, Grace Thompson was standing. The garden erupted in chaos. Mrs. Adunny dropped the laundry she'd been hanging and screamed with joy. Mr. Emeka abandoned his post to run closer, his professional composure completely forgotten. The gardener threw his tools in the air and began praising God in rapid-fire Yoruba. Daniel was crying and laughing and shouting all at the same time, still gripping Grace's hands through the gate, providing the anchor she needed to maintain her balance. And Grace was standing on her own 2 feet for the first time in 8 months, tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling with effort and triumph and pure joy. "I'm standing," she sobbed. "Daniel, I'm standing. Daddy, look at me. I'm standing." From the doorway of the mansion, Michael Thompson, Nigeria's most powerful businessman, a man who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, who'd faced down government ministers and international tycoons, collapsed to his knees and wept like a child. His daughter was standing. His little girl, who doctors said would never walk again, was on her feet. And she was doing it because a homeless boy had loved her back to life. Grace held her position for almost 30 seconds before gently lowering herself back into the wheelchair, exhausted but radiant with accomplishment. The entire household was in celebration mode, but Daniel was already thinking ahead. "Tomorrow," he told Grace through the gate, his own face wet with tears. "Tomorrow we try for longer, and maybe we try a step." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He paced the marble floors of his mansion, his mind racing with possibilities he'd never dared to imagine. His daughter, his precious Grace, might actually walk again. But more than that, she was happy again. She was fighting again. She was living again. And it was all because of Daniel. A 10-year-old boy who had nothing, who owned nothing, who was nobody in the eyes of Nigerian society. This child had accomplished what armies of expensive doctors couldn't do. He'd loved Grace back to life. As dawn broke over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange, Michael made a decision that would shock his entire social circle and change the trajectory of multiple lives. He was going to invite Daniel to live with them, not as a charity case, not as a project or a good deed to make himself feel better, but as family, as the brother Grace had never had, the son Michael had never expected to find. The boy who'd saved his daughter's life deserved nothing less than everything Michael could give. But first, he had to find Daniel and ask him properly. The next morning, instead of waiting for Daniel to arrive at the gate, Michael set out to find him. He'd never ventured into the parts of Lagos where homeless children survived, never seen firsthand the world that had shaped the boy who'd become so important to his family. What he found shocked him to his core. Following Daniel's vague directions about sleeping near the bridge, Michael and Mr. Emeka ended up in areas of Lagos that might as well have been on another planet from Victoria Island. The poverty wasn't theoretical here, it was raw, immediate, overwhelming. Children the same age as Grace picking through garbage dumps looking for anything sellable. Families living in structures made of corrugated metal and plastic sheeting. The smell of open sewers mixing with the smoke from cooking fires. And somewhere in this maze of survival and desperation was the boy who'd brought magic into his daughter's life. They found him under the Falomo Bridge, sharing a meager breakfast of bread and water with 3 other street children. Even here, even in these conditions, Daniel was the entertainer, making his friends laugh with silly faces and small dancing movements. When he saw Michael approaching, Daniel's first instinct was panic. Rich men didn't come to places like this unless something was very wrong. "Sir!" Daniel scrambled to his feet, his mind racing through possibilities. Had he done something wrong? Was Grace hurt? Were they angry about yesterday's attempt at standing? "Daniel!" Michael's voice was gentle, but the boy could hear something serious underneath. "We need to talk." The conversation that followed would be remembered by both of them for the rest of their lives. Michael sat down on the concrete beside Daniel, ignoring the dirt and the curious stares of the other street children. For several minutes, they just looked out at the busy Lagos traffic together. Finally, Michael spoke. "Daniel, do you know what you've done for my family?" The boy shrugged, suddenly shy. "I just dance, sir. It's not anything special. It's everything special." Michael turned to face him fully. "My daughter hasn't smiled in 8 months. She hasn't laughed, hasn't wanted to move, hasn't cared about anything. The doctors told me she might never walk again, and honestly, I was starting to worry she might never live again. Not really live." Daniel listened intently, his young face serious. "But then you came along," Michael continued. "With your dancing, with your joy, with your incredible heart. You gave her back her childhood. You gave her back her hope. Yesterday, when she stood up, that wasn't just about her legs getting stronger. That was about her spirit being healed." "She's my friend," Daniel said simply. "I just wanted her to be happy." "I know. And that's exactly why I'm here." Michael took a deep breath. "Daniel, I want to offer you something, but I need you to understand that it's completely your choice. No pressure, no obligations." The boy waited, his heart hammering. "I want you to come live with us. Permanently. Not as a guest, not as charity, as family. Grace needs her big brother, and honestly, I think you need a home." Daniel stared at Michael in complete silence for nearly a full minute. Cars honked in the distance. Vendors called out their wares. Life in Lagos continued around them. But in this moment, Daniel's world had stopped completely. You want me to live in your house?" he whispered finally. "I want you to be part of our house," Michael corrected. "Your own room, your own clothes, regular meals, school, everything that every child deserves, but that life hasn't given you yet." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "But I'm nobody, sir. I'm just a street boy. People like me don't get to live in places like yours." Michael reached over and gently lifted Daniel's chin, making sure their eyes met. "Daniel, you are not nobody. You are the boy who saved my daughter's life. You are the child with a heart so big you give away joy even when you have nothing else to give. You are extraordinary, and extraordinary people belong in a family that will love them the way they deserve." The tears came then, great heaving sobs that seemed to carry months of pain and loneliness and desperate hope. Michael pulled the boy into his arms. This stranger who wasn't a stranger. This child who'd become essential to his family's happiness. "Is that a yes?" Michael asked gently. Daniel could only nod, clinging to this man who was offering him everything he'd ever dreamed of and more. As they walked back toward the car, Daniel turned to look at his friends under the bridge one last time. They were watching with expressions of awe and disbelief. "Don't forget us," called out Kemi, a girl about his age who'd been like a sister to him during the hardest times. "Never," Daniel promised, and he meant it. Someday, when he was settled, when he was strong enough, he would find ways to help them too. He would remember where he came from, and he would use his good fortune to lift up others who were still waiting for their miracle. But for now, he was going home. To a real home with a real family, with Grace waiting for him. The mansion staff had been hastily informed of the new arrangement, and everyone had gone into overdrive preparing for Daniel's arrival. Mrs. Adunni had prepared a feast that could have fed half of Lagos. Mr. Emeka had personally overseen the setup of Daniel's new room. Not in the servants' quarters, but in the main house, right next to Grace's room so they could be close to each other. Grace herself was practically vibrating with excitement, positioned at the front window so she could watch for their return. When the car pulled through the gates, she began shouting at the top of her lungs. "He's here. Daniel's here. Mrs. Adunny, he's really here." Daniel stepped out of the car and looked up at the mansion that would now be his home. It was even more impressive from inside the gates, like something from a movie, like a palace from his wildest dreams. But what made it feel real, what made it feel like home, was Grace's face pressed against the window, beaming at him with pure happiness. "Welcome home, son," Michael said, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. Home. Daniel had never had a home before. He'd had places to sleep, corners to hide in, but never a place where he belonged. As they walked through the front door together, Grace wheeled herself over at top speed, nearly crashing into Daniel in her excitement. "You're really staying?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "Forever and always?" "Forever and always," Daniel confirmed, and felt the truth of those words settle into his bones. That first night in his new bedroom, Daniel lay in an actual bed with actual sheets and stared at the ceiling in amazement. Through the walls, he could hear Grace talking excitedly to Mrs. Adunny about all the things she and Daniel would do together. "Tomorrow we'll practice standing again, and maybe he can teach me some of his dances, and we can play in the garden, and I can show him all my books." Daniel smiled in the darkness. For the first time in his life, tomorrow was something to look forward to instead of something to survive. The integration wasn't without its challenges. Daniel had lived by street rules for years: eat fast before someone takes your food, sleep lightly, trust carefully. Learning to relax, to accept that he was safe, to believe that this good fortune wasn't temporary. It took time. There were moments when he would hoard food in his room, forgetting that meals came regularly now. Times when he would wake up in a panic, momentarily forgetting where he was. Occasions when he would flinch if someone approached him too quickly, muscle memory from years of avoiding trouble. But Grace was the perfect medicine for his healing. Her uncomplicated joy at having him there, her complete acceptance of who he was and where he'd come from, helped him believe that he truly belonged. And every afternoon they continued their routine. But now Daniel didn't have to leave at sunset. Now he could stay, could help Grace with her exercises, could be the brother she'd always wanted and the family he'd never had. The transformation in both children was miraculous. Daniel thrived with proper nutrition, education, and most importantly, love. Michael enrolled him in the same exclusive international school that Grace would attend when she was ready. His natural intelligence, sharpened by years of street survival, made him an exceptional student. But it was his character that truly impressed everyone who met him. Despite having every reason to be bitter about his early life, Daniel remained kind. He befriended the shy kids at school, defended those who were bullied, and never forgot to be grateful for every blessing in his new life. Grace's progress was even more dramatic. With Daniel as her constant companion and cheerleader, she attacked her physical therapy with determination that amazed her doctors. Her legs grew stronger, her balance improved, her confidence soared. 3 months after Daniel moved in, she took her first step. It happened on a Thursday afternoon in Grace's physical therapy room, which Michael had equipped with every piece of equipment money could buy. Dr. Adebayo was leading Grace through her usual exercises while Daniel provided entertainment and encouragement from the sidelines. "All right, Grace," Dr. Adebayo said. "Let's try our standing exercise. Hold for 30 seconds today." Grace gripped the parallel bars and pushed herself upright. But instead of just standing still, she looked at Daniel with a mischievous grin. "Watch this," she said. Before anyone could react, Grace lifted her right foot and moved it forward 6 inches. Then her left foot followed. 1 step, then another. "Grace!" Daniel screamed, jumping up from his chair. "You're walking. You're actually walking." Dr. Adebayo stood frozen in medical disbelief. According to every test, every scan, every neurological evaluation, this should have been impossible. But there was Grace, taking her third step, then her fourth, while Daniel danced circles around the therapy room and Michael stood in the doorway with tears streaming down his face. "I'm walking," Grace whispered, as if she couldn't quite believe it herself. "Daniel, I'm really walking." By the time she reached the end of the parallel bar's 10 full steps, the entire household staff had gathered to witness the miracle. Mrs. Adunni was praying in Yoruba, thanking God and all the ancestors. Mr. Emeka was calling his wife to share the incredible news. Even the gardener had abandoned his plants to witness this impossible moment. But the most beautiful sight in that room was Daniel and Grace, holding hands and crying happy tears together. The street boy and the billionaire's daughter, who had saved each other in ways that money could never measure. That evening, Michael called a family meeting in his study. It was the first time he'd used that phrase, family meeting, and Daniel felt his heart swell with belonging. "I want to discuss something important with both of you," Michael began, looking at his children, because that's what they were now, his children. "Grace, your recovery has been extraordinary. The doctors are calling it medically unprecedented. But I know the real reason you're walking again." He turned to Daniel. "It's because you gave her something to fight for, someone to fight with. You didn't just teach her to dance, you taught her to live again." Daniel ducked his head, still uncomfortable with praise after years of being invisible. "But Daniel," Michael continued, "what you might not realize is that you saved more than just Grace. You saved me too. I was so lost in my grief, so focused on trying to fix everything with money and power, that I'd forgotten the most important truth." Both children looked at him expectantly. "Love heals. Kindness heals. Joy heals. You can't buy those things, you can't negotiate for them in a boardroom. They have to be given freely the way you gave them to us." Michael paused, gathering his thoughts. "Which brings me to what I wanted to discuss. Daniel, you've been with us for 3 months now, and in that time you've become essential to this family. Not just helpful, essential. Grace is walking because of you. I'm learning to be a better father because of—" "I want to make this official," Michael said firmly. "I want to adopt you, Daniel. Legally, officially, permanently. I want you to be my son in every way that matters. Thompson would become your last name too." The silence that followed was electric. Daniel stared at Michael in complete shock. You want to adopt me? Really adopt me?" "If you'll have me as your father," Michael replied. "I know I can't replace what you lost when your mother died, but I'd like to try to give you the family you deserve." Grace wheeled herself over and grabbed Daniel's hand. "Say yes," she whispered urgently. "Say yes so we can really be brother and sister forever." Daniel looked around the study, at the books lining the walls, at the family photos that would soon include him, at Grace's hopeful face, at Michael's gentle expression. For a boy who had spent years feeling unwanted, unloved, forgotten by the world, this moment felt like a dream too good to be true. "Yes," he whispered. Then louder, with more confidence. "Yes, I want to be your son. I want to be Grace's real brother. I want this to be my family." The legal process took several weeks, but Michael's lawyers expedited everything possible. The adoption was finalized on a bright Lagos morning in December, with Grace serving as the star witness, proudly telling the judge how her brother Daniel had saved her life. When they walked out of the courthouse, Daniel Thompson was no longer a homeless street child. He was the legal son of one of Nigeria's wealthiest men, with all the privileges and opportunities that entailed. But more importantly, he was loved. Completely, unconditionally, permanently loved. The story of the billionaire who adopted a street child made headlines across Nigeria. Some praised Michael's compassion. Others questioned his judgment. The society magazines buzzed with speculation and gossip. But Michael no longer cared about public opinion the way he once had. His family was whole. His daughter was walking. His son was thriving. The rest was just noise. Daniel handled the media attention with remarkable grace for a child who had once been invisible to society. When reporters asked him about going from the streets to a mansion, he would simply say, "I was always the same person inside. Now I just have a family who sees that." Grace, now walking with only minimal assistance from leg braces, became Daniel's fiercest defender. When classmates or strangers made comments about her adopted brother, she would fix them with a stare that could freeze lava and say, "He's not my adopted brother. He's my brother. Period." The mansion that had once echoed with silence was now constantly filled with life. Daniel's friends from his new school came over regularly, drawn by his infectious personality and the warmth of the Thompson household. Grace hosted playdates with her classmates, showing off her walking skills and introducing everyone to her amazing brother, Mrs. Adunny, who had watched over the family through their darkest days, would often pause in her work just to listen to the sounds of children laughing, of a family being a family. But perhaps the most beautiful change was in Michael himself. The man who had once been known as cold and calculating in business became famous for his generosity. He established a foundation to help homeless children across Lagos, hiring Daniel as a consultant despite his young age. Because who better to advise on what street children needed than someone who had lived that reality? The foundation's first project was a shelter and school near the Falomo Bridge, built exactly where Daniel used to sleep. On opening day, Daniel stood beside Michael as they cut the ribbon, both of them remembering that concrete underpass where their conversation had changed everything. "We never forget where we came from," Daniel said quietly, watching dozens of homeless children enter their new safe space. "And we never stop reaching back to help others climb up." 1 year after Daniel joined the Thompson family, Grace shocked everyone by announcing that she wanted to learn to dance. Not the therapeutic movements she'd been doing with her physical therapy, real dancing. The kind Daniel had used to first reach her heart. "I want to enter the Lagos Youth Dance Competition," she declared over dinner one evening. "And I want Daniel to be my partner." The competition was still 6 months away, but Grace and Daniel threw themselves into preparation with the same determination Grace had shown in learning to walk again. Every afternoon after school, they would practice in the mansion's ballroom, a room that had been unused since Sarah's death, but now rang with music and laughter again. Daniel taught Grace everything he knew about moving to rhythm, about expressing emotion through movement, about finding joy in dance. But Grace taught him something too, the power of persistence. Her legs still tired easily, her balance wasn't perfect, and some days the pain from her injuries made dancing difficult. But she never gave up, never complained, never stopped pushing forward. "Pain is temporary," she would say, echoing something Daniel had once told her during her darkest days. "But quitting lasts forever." Their dance routine told their story, the tale of a sad little girl and a joyful street boy who had saved each other. It was part contemporary, part traditional Nigerian dance, part pure expression of love between siblings who had found each other against impossible odds. When competition day arrived, the auditorium was packed. Word had spread about the billionaire's adopted son and recovered daughter who were dancing together. Everyone wanted to see if the fairy tale was real. Daniel and Grace took the stage in matching outfits, him in a crisp white shirt and black pants, her in a flowing purple dress that moved like water when she danced. As the music began, Daniel started with the same silly, exaggerated movements he'd used that first day at the mansion gates. Grace laughed, genuinely, spontaneously, just like she had that first afternoon. Then she joined in, her movements careful but confident, her face glowing with pure joy. Their routine progressed through the stages of their friendship, the tentative first meetings, the growing trust, the moment when Grace first stood, the celebration of her first steps. Daniel lifted Grace, carefully, briefly, in the climactic moment, symbolizing how they had lifted each other up. But the most powerful moment came at the end, when Grace walked, not danced, but simply walked, across the stage to Daniel, took his hand, and they bowed together. The auditorium erupted. The judges were in tears. Even the other competitors were applauding, recognizing that they had witnessed something far beyond a dance performance. They had witnessed a testament to the healing power of love. Grace and Daniel didn't win first place. Their technique wasn't polished enough for that. But they won something much more valuable. They won hearts. Videos of their performance went viral across Nigeria and beyond, inspiring millions of people with their story of resilience, hope, and the family bonds that transcend blood. More importantly, they had proven to themselves that there was no challenge they couldn't face together. As they sat in the car driving home after the competition, medals around their necks and hearts full of pride, Grace turned to Daniel with a serious expression. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything. Promise me that no matter how big we get, no matter what happens in our lives, we'll never forget to dance. We'll never stop bringing joy to people who need it." Daniel squeezed his sister's hand. "I promise. We'll always dance, Grace. And we'll always remember that the best kind of wealth isn't money. It's love." From the front seat, Michael smiled as he listened to his children. 2 years ago, he had thought he'd lost everything that mattered. Now he realized he'd actually found everything he never knew he needed. 5 years later, Daniel Thompson graduated as valedictorian of his class, having earned a full scholarship to study international business at Oxford University. His speech was titled "From the Streets to the Stars," and it brought the entire auditorium to its feet. Grace Thompson walked across her own graduation stage without any assistance, having become the youngest person in Nigerian history to complete her secondary education. She was heading to medical school, determined to become a neurologist who could help other children overcome impossible diagnoses. But before they left for university, the Thompson siblings had one final project together. They opened the Daniel and Grace Center for Children's Joy, a combination school, medical facility, and art center built in the heart of Morocco slum, where Daniel had first learned to dance as a survival mechanism. Every afternoon, just like in the old days, children would gather to watch performances. But now, instead of one homeless boy dancing alone, dozens of children learned that they had value, that they had talent, that they had hope for a future better than their circumstances suggested. "Every child deserves to dance," Grace said at the center's opening ceremony, standing beside her brother as hundreds of people cheered. "Every child deserves to feel joy. Every child deserves to know they matter." Daniel nodded, watching a group of street children attempt their first coordinated dance routine in the center's courtyard. "And every child deserves a family that sees their light, even when the world wants to keep them in darkness." Michael stood in the back of the crowd, watching his children address the media and community leaders with poise and purpose. 25 years of building a business empire, and his greatest achievement was these two extraordinary young people who had taught him that success wasn't measured in naira, but in lives changed, hearts healed, and love multiplied. As the sun set over Lagos that day, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, the sounds of children's laughter echoed from the Daniel and Grace Center. Somewhere in that joyful noise was the ghost of a sad little girl's first laugh in months, the memory of a homeless boy's defiant dance, and the promise of countless other stories yet to be written. Because this is what happens when kindness meets courage, when love overcomes circumstance, when two broken hearts help each other heal. This is what happens when we remember that every human being, no matter how small, how poor, how forgotten, carries within them the power to change the world. Daniel's street dance had saved Grace's spirit. Grace's love had given Daniel a family. Together, they had created something beautiful and eternal, proof that the greatest wealth in this world isn't what we accumulate for ourselves, but what we give away to others. Their story spread across Nigeria, across Africa, around the world, inspiring countless other families to open their hearts to children who needed homes, encouraging communities to see the potential in every child, reminding everyone that sometimes the person who saves you comes from the most unexpected places. And in mansions and mud huts, in boardrooms and classrooms, in hospitals and orphanages, people began to understand a truth that Daniel and Grace had learned in a garden in Lagos. We are all just one dance away from changing someone's life forever. We are all just one act of kindness away from discovering that giving love away is the only way to multiply it. We are all just one moment of courage away from realizing that family isn't about blood or money or status. It's about choosing to see each other, choosing to love each other, choosing to lift each other up no matter what. This is the story of how a homeless boy's dance saved a billionaire's daughter, and how they both saved each other, their father, and everyone whose life they touched along the way. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary miracles begin with the simplest gifts. A smile, a laugh, a dance, and an open heart willing to believe that love really can conquer all. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that every child matters, if it inspired you to look for the dancers in your own community who might need a family, share it. Comment below and tell us where in the world you're watching from, and share a time when someone's kindness changed your life. Remember, we all have something to give, and we all have the power to dance someone back to life. Keep dancing, keep loving, and keep believing in the miracle of human kindness. Until next time, this is your reminder that the best stories aren't the ones we watch. They're the ones we live.